you'll have to take it, somebody will have to examine, as Mr. Farooqi says, if they are going to follow the law. Nothing wrong about it. I don't see that there is anything seriously wrong about it.
But Dr. Abhishek Singhvi, who should decide that? Should it be the court or should it be governments? Who should decide who's a terrorist and who isn't?
No, I think we need to step back and look back, in fact, all the way back to Tada. It was found in Tada itself that not only was the conviction rate very low, but a huge number, in fact, from Gujarat, a large number of mere farmers had been picked up. When that was found, in fact, at that time, if you go back in history, a committee was made. And it has to be always an executive committee, because the power of withdrawal or the power of prosecution, withdrawal from prosecution, lies with the executive. Now, in an individual case, of course, it can be misused. But that power definitely exists is point one. Point two, in the past, right from when Tada was created, one of the major reasons for repealing Tada, one of the major reasons for our opposition to Pota was this kind of misuse. Thirdly, I think perhaps, and I'm guessing to an extent, perhaps what the UP government has done may not be wrong at all, but they have not been able to project it or present it appropriately. Because if there is in fact a case-by-case appraisal, if there is a going into and sifting through the facts of each case, and then a reasoned conclusion is arrived at, that should be made public. It will inspire confidence. I think the feeling is that it is not inspiring confidence, that it is done in a quick manner, hush-hush manner. On the contrary, there is no doubt about the power. It should be done where injustice has been done, but it should be done in a fair and transparent manner. And even though at the moment it is not a judicial body doing it, at the moment whatever they have done should be made available in terms of sifting through the case and giving reasons why each person is not to be prosecuted.
Except that lastly, I think at the moment what is happening, sure, but at the moment what is happening is that the motives are being questioned under the circumstances in which this is happening. I'll come back to Mr. Farooqi on that, because there's been a sense.
Why? What is the circumstance?
I'll tell you the circumstance. The political observers.
Unless and until a bias is shown, as was the reason why the Supreme Court whole-scale transferred cases out of Gujarat. That kind of bias, I would be fully, agreeable and critical, very critical. But I don't think any such allegation has been made yet. Now, if that kind of material is found, why don't they disclose the committee report? I think it will allay many apprehensions.
But Mr. Farooqi, it comes at a time when many political analysts sense that the Muslims who form a big part of the SP's vote bank, things haven't really been going so well with them. You've had Ziaul Haq's death, you've had the death in custody of one of the suspects against whom you wanted to withdraw charges, you've had some more than a dozen communal riots in the state since Akhilesh Yadav came to power, and that you're stepping on the gas because things are really not so well with your traditional vote bank.
No, I think that is the kind of gimmick and the corner which is being spread against us. As far as we are concerned, we are committed to fulfill all our commitments which we have given in the manifesto. As far as the tensions are concerned, yes, in the initial stages there has been some problem. The law and order problem, yes, we agree that whatever has been done, it should not have been, whether it is Ziaul Haq or the recent case in Saharanpur, but it is under control, and you must have seen it that even Netaji, the president of our party, has asked our government that you have to control the whole law and order problem. But that does not mean that law and order problem is against the Muslims only. It's a law and order problem which is creating which is there, and we cannot import the police from outside. Whatever the police force we have got, we have to control it.
But how do you fight? How do you fight the perception that you're not doing this for vote bank politics?
No, it is not vote bank politics. It is not vote bank politics. Yes, we are for the welfare of the Muslims, because even the BJP, you would be surprised, even the BJP has not discarded Sachar committee report, and Sachar committee report has found various things, and we are even the central government is implementing this. On the second round, you will be having another issue in it. So anything which is being done for the minorities, my BJP friends think it is appeasement. Up to now it was appeasement. Now the fact of the matter is Muslims have gone down in each and every sphere of life, and as far as these arrests are concerned, time and again it has been found that lots and lots of Muslim youth across the country have been falsely implicated by the police force, and then they have been released.
A quick response from Sudhanshu Trivedi, and I'll come to Dr. Singhvi. Yes, Sudhanshu.
As far as Mr. Farooqi has raised the question that the Muslims are going down in the Sachar committee report, I would like to ask, if the situation has gone so down for the Muslim community, who is responsible? Those who have ruled for 6 years, like the BJP-led NDA, or those who have ruled for 60 years? And I would like to give an example of Uttar Pradesh. At the time of 1947, the representation of Muslim community in the bureaucracy and the government services was around 20%. Now it is less than 2%. Who is responsible? The BJP, who has ruled UP for 6 years, or those secular parties which have ruled the Uttar Pradesh for 60 years. So it is the responsibility of those political parties for the present plight of Muslim community now, because they have never supported the moderate element in the Muslim community. They have always supported the hardliner element, and the same policy they are doing this time. And Samajwadi Party is always having the habit of looking the criminals and sympathy on the caste and religion basis. As I have given you one example, during the last tenures of their regime, they have withdrawn the cases of certain communities, certain castes. Now they are going on the basis of the religion. Why you are looking the justice or deprivation of the justice from the angle of caste and religion?
I hope you would have implemented the same kind of philosophy in your state, Gujarat, wherein
yes,
all lawlessness has happened. The people were not
as single example in which the Gujarat government has withdrawn a case.
Sir, as Abhishek Bhai has rightly said, all those people who were directly involved into it, they were released, they were given bail, and the prosecutions were from the people who were RSS and BJP people, and you had no, in fact, kind of even the remorse for the killings which you have done in the name of the threat to your chief minister. You have.
I want to ask just one question. Yeah. Has Gujarat government withdrawn any single case? We have supported in all the proceedings.
No.
You are withdrawing the cases.
You did not allow to file the case
there
against the people.
There is a difference. If you are not having faith on the judicial process of the country, that is a different thing.
It was the Honorable Supreme Court which asked you to go in again.
Gentlemen, one moment. I just want to get back to the central point of this, which is on the issue of politicization of terror. Let me ask Dr. Abhishek Singhvi here and then Dushyant Dave, that isn't it a fact that across parties we've seen the politicization of terror issues? Digvijay Singh did it with the Batla House encounter. There was an open difference between him and Mr. Chidambaram. I'm going to come to the BJP on it as well, but this is not something that is unique to the SP, Mr. Singhvi.
Nidhi, you are right. To the extent anybody, and by anybody I mean anybody, it doesn't matter Congress or non-Congress, suggests that there is a ideology or a color which justifies terrorism, you have to make it clear terrorism is non-negotiable. Yes. You have rightly cited some statements, but have you cited the actions which followed it? There was a delegation taken on Batla House, but did the government of India budge? Did the Delhi government budge? The official Congress podium of spokesperson, from that podium I myself repudiated. So we stand firm where we should. But equally, I will say that whenever any scheme of benefit, and I find this growing, is done for minorities, I don't mean Muslims only, but for minorities, any scheme, social, economic or otherwise, why this feeling we react always, oh, this is something we done by way of appeasement? The whole fact of the matter is that minorities do have apprehensions which the Constitution gives them legitimate right by giving them entrenched rights against the majority. If it was simple majority rule, there would be no minority rights. The whole idea is to reassure minorities, and if you find by painstaking examination, and there I agree, there is a slight element of doubt which the Samajwadi would do well to make public in the public domain how they arrived at this conclusion.
We'll do that.
But where there is a clear feeling of victimization, or where there are youths who are, and it has happened earlier in Tada and other, not only for Muslims but for others also, people who are innocent youth, or you are farmers, or who are people just going around for looking for employment. And if you have credible information, you should release, and you should then not react only because some minorities are involved.
Which is why you made an important point.
Is wrong.
Yes, you made an important point that the SP government needs to be transparent on what basis it believes that there are no cases against these people. Mr. Sudhanshu Trivedi, I have a question for you. When we're talking about the politicization of terror and you are attacking the SP today, you've had the BJP's Jammu unit that has gone ballistic over the arrest of a police officer allegedly involved in militant attacks in Jammu and Kashmir, saying that this is a conspiracy and that this is going to be raised at the national executive. Isn't the BJP doing the same thing? Aren't you also politicizing an issue of terror? How do you know that police officer has just been arrested yesterday? How do you know what the details of the case are?
As far as this case is concerned, the details are different. If you look about the politicization of the terror, You look what the parties are doing at the highest level. I would like to suggest our friend Dr. Singhvi that Digvijay Singh is saying such an absurd allegation that 2611 was a conspiracy of RSS. If a responsible political party's senior leader is saying like this, what is the message? And the second, the latest Naxalite attack in Chhattisgarh, he has said that those were our brothers. You know that Mr. Mahendra Karma's body was having 85 bullets. 85 bullets. And other than stabbing by the knife, those people who are doing this type of act, and if the one of the senior most leaders of the Congress party is saying they are like our brothers, what type of politics
but
you are playing with the
haven't answered my
terrorists?
question. You have a serious case against a JNK police officer for alleged militant links. Why is the BJP defending him 48 hours after he's been arrested? Aren't you also politicizing terror? Everyone's doing it. That's my point.
As far as the police officer is concerned, let the inquiry come, and whatever is right, it will come out. Once you are asking about the politicization, then I am giving an example of the highest level of
Then before inquiry, why are you trying to do that? Before even inquiry, the initial stages itself, why are you trying to defend him? Let the inquiry be completed.
Let me get Dushyant Dave's thoughts on that. Dushyant.
Nidhi, there is one thing which we have to understand as a nation. I don't think this is about politics. Every individual citizen of the country is entitled to the protection of the laws, which includes the constitutional protection. Muslims constitutes 15 to 17% of our population, which is a substantial population. It's the second largest population of Muslims in the world. Now, nobody ever would say that a person against whom there is credible evidence, be it a Hindu or be it a Muslim or a Christian or a Parsi or a Sikh, of involvement in a terrorist-related cases must be dealt with lightly. They have to be dealt with harshly.
Yes.
Difficulty is that we are increasingly becoming a police state. And our police administration is extremely weak today in the sense that they repeatedly, be it Gujarat, be it Uttar Pradesh, be it Punjab, be it Assam, everywhere, they repeatedly pick up innocent people. There is no vetting of the arrests. The magistrates and the judiciary, I also regret to say, do not really examine the evidence at the first instance when an accused is produced before them, with the result that these young people, these youth, languish in jail sometimes for years together, and they are ultimately found to be innocent. In Gujarat in the 80s, for example, during the Congress regime, thousands of arrests were made under TADA. And almost 99% of them were found to be completely bogus when there was no terrorism at all in Gujarat. So this is, and this was done in a Congress state. So it is very unfortunate, and most of the people who were picked up in Gujarat were Muslims, unfortunately. So we have to forget, the religions. We have to really see that every citizen is picked up on certain credible material.
And
that material is examined at the highest level, first by the investigating
that's a very valid
agency,
point.
then by the judiciary.
Okay, that's a very valid point that you make, and I think that the question though is whether when parties put these things on their agendas, in their manifestos, it depends on what their motive is. If it's driven purely by vote bank politics, does that also create, a reverse danger? I think that's what we're talking about. Gentlemen, stay with us, because since we're talking about this whole issue of appeasement, the BJP has attacked the UPA government as well for its decision to set up central universities that will reserve 50% of seats for minorities, a move which comes barely a year before the general elections. Now, it's being seen as the Congress's strategy to eye the Muslim vote. The centre has, however, justified it, saying that it was a long-standing decision.
With just a year to go before the next general elections, the government has announced its plan to set up 5 central universities where 50% seats will be reserved for students from minority communities. Not too long ago, the government's move to reserve 4.5% seats in the OBC category for Muslims first got a thumbs down from the Election Commission just ahead of the Uttar Pradesh elections, and then the Supreme Court said there can't be reservations on the basis of religion. The political significance of both these attempts not lost on anyone.
According to the 2001 census, of all the 18% of minorities in the country, Muslims account for over 13%. The government says it's acting on an old proposal, but given the timing of the move coming as it does, with just a year to go before the general election, it's already raising questions.
Congress only believes in appeasement and rhetoric. They do not deliver anything on the ground.
This government has been in power for more than 9 years. It has done nothing for minorities, especially for Muslims.
The decision is in line with recommendations of the Sachar committee that said over 6 years ago that Muslims are worse off than even scheduled castes in terms of education. But the government justifies the decision even though it has come almost 5 years after the idea was first mooted.
I have been entrusted the responsibility only 6 months back. I am not worried by the accusation. I am doing my job. The party is doing, the government is doing its responsibility. That to me the government should not take the initiative just because it is last year of the government. No, it's not.
So is this a carrot dangling exercise ahead of the next general elections or a genuine attempt to uplift minorities? The proposal still has a long way to go and will need the approval of Parliament. But with it coming in the last year of this government's term, no doubt, whatever the intentions, politics won't be far from it. In New Delhi, Keith Kiangre for NDTV.
Well, I spoke a little while earlier to the Union Minister for Minority Affairs, Mr. K. Rahman Khan. Mr. Khan, why has the centre suddenly decided to set up these universities? We of course understand that they would have 50% reservation for minorities, but what's the basis for the decision now?
This is not a sudden decision. When the Ministry of Minority Affairs was set up in 2006, the then ministry, after the submission of Sachar committee report, the stress on Sachar committee is the backwardness of the Indian Muslims in education, that is both in primary, secondary and higher education. They are much backward than even the SC/ST communities of the country. So the various programs were envisaged to as an affirmative action.
But sir, the timing of the decision is being questioned because the opposition says it's with an eye on the 2014 general election and the timing therefore looks suspicious.
No, the opposition always see. I assumed the charge as the minister in October 2012, and if I start acting when and taking decisions, the ministry cannot keep quiet. So we have taken, it was there on the annal of the minority ministry. So I have carried forward this. So how to say that whatever decisions we take is in keeping in view of the election is wrong, because the ministry has to function and we have to go ahead to implement the Sachar committee. And one way people say that we are not implementing the Sachar committee report, and others say that if we take action they will say that you are doing it for election. I don't...
Well, so finally, you know, many would say this is politics of appeasement. After all, the Sachar committee report came out in 2006 and now you're going ahead and taking these steps as far as the universities are concerned.
You see, it is not so. It is the Sachar committee is a continuous process which we are implementing it. We have scholarship program, we have other programs, and the universities. It was also the decision to establish university was taken in 2008. It's not today. So there are so many programs which there will be delay. The decision was taken much in 2008. So it is not a new decision keeping in view of the election we are taking. If you go back, the committee was also established. There was correspondence with the Ministry of Human Resource Development, and then I have only carried forward, and then we are set up. Then immediately we set up a committee with and the chairman is Professor Sukhdev Thorat, and the committee has submitted a report. After we got the report, we have started working.
All right, Mr. Khan, thank you very much for giving us a perspective to do this. And so is the UPA now appeasing Muslims ahead of elections? That's the second part of our discussion tonight. We have Zoya Hassan, former member of the National Commission for Minorities and well-known political analyst, joining us in here. Zoya, what do you think? Does the timing of this sound suspicious, or is it a good idea?
Well, if the UPA government is interested in promoting the education of minorities, then surely this decision should have been taken
Much earlier.
3 years, 4 years ago. It is late because it takes time to set up a university and so on. And also if you look at, there's so many different programs, well, at least 2 or 3 major programs that this government has introduced in the last 5 years. But they haven't really taken off. For example, the Prime Minister's 15-point program. On the ground, very little has been done. Then their other flagship program is the multi-sectoral development plan in 90 districts. For most of the districts, I think the money that has been allocated by the centre hasn't even reached has not reached the states, or if it has reached the states, it has not reached the districts. So clearly, there is a great deal of doubt as to the seriousness of government's commitment in promoting the interests of minorities. Now, on top of that, at this point, to introduce a whole new program such as setting up 5 universities. Now, I mean, I'll come back to this. I mean, I have my own reservations on whether it's a good idea in principle, whether now or even 5 years earlier, to set up minority educational institutions with 50% reservations for minorities. I think there is a huge issue of educational backwardness of Muslims, but should that be promoted and addressed through minority educational institutions, or, as I would think, it should really be promoted through affirmative action in admissions in regular universities across the country?
Let me get Mr. Farooqi's response to that. You heard what Zoya said, that this may not be A, the best way to do it, and B, if the UPA was serious about promoting the interests of Muslims and their education, this should have been done a long time ago.
No, let us be frank in accepting it that it was UPA who appointed the Sachar committee, and it was bold decision, and this, for the first time after independence, a committee for the welfare for understanding the welfare, social educational backwardness of Muslims was created, and this report was tabled. And fortunately, none of the political parties have opposed this finding. Even the BJP has not said that the findings are not correct. Now, after that, several subcommittees were also constituted. One of the committees was the Fatmi committee, wherein the opening of the centers of Aligarh Muslim University, 5 centers, they have now already started working on 3 centers. Likewise, the idea came also in 2008 for having the universities in the minorities area, when the minorities could get the admissions. So all these things will take a little time. You cannot, but as far as the present incumbent is concerned, I personally feel since the time he has come, he has started taking, as Zoya Baji has already said, that even for the MSDP, all of us have the grievances that the earlier MSDP was not utilized properly, and the money has gone.
But there's another point she's raising. Don't do it through minority institutions. There should be affirmative action in regular institutions.
We don't agree on this, because this we don't have the lack of educational institutions. Even now, you would be surprised that in the entire Okla area, there are hardly any children who are getting the admission to good schools. They have been systematic.
Let me come to Dr. Abhishek Singhvi. Dr. Singhvi, you're still fighting a battle in the Supreme Court over the Muslim sub-quota issue, and now this issue has been raked up just under a year before the elections. Like we were asking the SP in segment 1, I ask you in segment 2, the timing of this will raise questions.
Not at all, Nidhi. I think that's very unfair criticism by the opposition for vested interests. Let's just step back and just ask a few questions. There are 2 objections or 3 objections. One is, even whenever done now or earlier, it's a wrong move or not a good enough move. Secondly, the timing. Thirdly, the constitutional validity. Now, first of all, you must remember that the Sachar committee is a very, very comprehensive and a very wide canvas. It is and has been continuously implemented since its report came. I'll give you only one example. You had a targeted district-wise implementation that those districts where there are minorities in greater numbers should be given certain targeted, focused development programs. Like that, there are other schemes, subcommittees. So it's not that, but Sachar is so large that you can't do everything at one go. Number 2, please judge something on its intrinsic merits, not on its timings. Let me assume for a minute, although it's totally untrue, that it's done for the elections around the corner. Suppose I do an excellent idea, but also with the intention to get votes. Is it wrong? Is the idea wrong? Is the policy wrong? Third, it is in a sense a form of affirmative action. Affirmative action works when you have enough seats. Where are the seats for Muslims? I forget the figure in the Sachar report, but our national average is something like literacy around 65% odd,
Yes.
Now I am sure the minorities, generally Muslims, would have less than 2/3 of that. No, I think it will be lesser. Now if that is so, where are they getting seats in the existing institutions? Remember, these are 5 new central universities which will have 50% non-Muslims, which makes it in a sense a normal university with affirmative action up to 50%. Now the important thing is that you are providing opportunities to a class, and it is really targeting the backwardness, the educational backwardness, not their Muslim status. It just happens that Muslims are more educational backward, but the focus is on educational backwardness. The focus is not on religion. And I think we have to be bold enough to say it and get over this now, because otherwise some of these segments will never get round it.
Okay, then Sudhanshu
Tomorrow
Trivedi,
if you have a
are you going to
statistical
always damn a good idea, even if it's with an eye on the election? Are you always going to just slam it and say it's appeasement? Don't you have to accept ideas when they're good, no matter what the motive may be? Essentially, that's what Dr. Singhvi is saying.
You have said about the good idea and the timing. The timing of this move is known to everybody. I would like to remind one more thing. In December 2011, just before the UP Assembly election, UPA government has announced 4.5% reservation for Muslims. Was it moved by the motive of the welfare of the Muslim community? Just 4 months before the UP election. All the time reports related to Godhra came either before the Lok Sabha elections or before the Gujarat elections. The timing is always important in the politics. And the second point, now the policy, whether it is a good or the bad, I would like to remind that during the discussion in the Constituent Assembly, the idea of Muslim reservation was unanimously rejected under the presence of Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru. And all the Muslim members have rejected this. Now the question arises, what the situation has turned in the last 66 years, that the situation has come to this low, because you have not allowed those minority to come in the mainstream education and come up shoulder in shoulder with the rest of the society. Now again you are trying to separate them, and you are making a religious demarcation in the education. As I would like to remind, in 2008, when the defense minister had asked about the number of Muslim head count in the Indian army, when it was opposed by the commander-in-chief, then it was withdrawn. So you are trying to put a religious color in all the aspects. This is the political motive, the timing is this, and the constitution never allows the reservation on the basis of the religion, the spirit of the constitution.
Hold on, sir. Perhaps you do not know Article 341, where is the constitutional fraud has been done, and the reservation has been excluded to the Muslims and the Christians. Article 15-16 does not provide for any discrimination, but you have done it. The Constitution does not provide under Article 341 that the reservation should be on the basis of the religion, but you have specifically excluded other than Hindus. Later on you implemented included Sikhs and the Buddhists. The Muslims and the Christians, even today, they are not allowed to have the benefit of 341. So don't talk about this.
Let me ask Dushyant Dave on that. Dushyant, do you think that again this is a tricky issue, or if you look at the Sachar Committee's figures, it's a very important report. So much of it hasn't actually been implemented. As Zoya says, maybe a lot of the implementation is not done in the right way. But there are serious issues about education in the Muslim community. Is this the best way to go forward with this?
Nidhi, this is an extremely delicate issue, first and foremost. And let me remind you and the nation Dr. Ambedkar's words, because the Constituent Assembly's draft constitution and reservation, or not reservation, but the special status for the minorities was severely attacked. And Dr. Ambedkar answered it in his closing remarks, when the draft constitution was amended. And he said that all those millions of Muslims who have left India and decided to go to Pakistan, we should forget about them. But all those millions who have decided to remain in India, it is the duty of every Hindu and every Indian who is there to see that these Muslims are treated as part of the society. We facilitate them as much as we can, and we must help them in settling down and bringing about a harmonious society as possible. And he wants in 1948 that if we don't do that, the community is bound to explode someday. Those are the words that Dr. Ambedkar, my friend from BJP is right that reservation was rejected for minorities. But look at the situation today. Affirmative action, nobody questions when you give industry, special lands which are acquired and thousands of crores of rupees in tax exemptions. You do not question privatization of education where admissions are made only for the rich because you can enter into a medical engineering or a business management school by paying some money. You are not questioning all that. I would really appeal and beg my friends in BJP or Congress for that matter that they should really not politicize. The fact of the matter is that not just economically, socially there is a serious division in the society. Muslims are one group which has seriously suffered socially and economically and educationally, which would be included. Therefore, any kind of an action, affirmative action, and affirmative actions are known world over. Okay. Even in United States, the black
you're saying it shouldn't automatically be rejected
through affirmative action.
Okay, very passionately said. Sudhanshu, so, a quick response to that. You heard what Dushyant Dave said. How do you react? Sudhanshu, can you hear me?
There is some problem in the voice.
Okay, I'm going to try and get his audio back. Dr. Singhvi, one moment. Zoya had a point to make here on what Dushyant said in particular. I know you have a problem with the method, but how do you, address these issues?
No, but I think the issue is this. The point is really not the timing. It's not about appeasement. I think the issue that we should be talking about is that government has simply not done enough over the last 7 to 8 years since the Sachar committee pointed out the huge development deficit. There's much more that government should have done and it has not done. I think that's the issue. I would not really get into the question of appeasement and timing. Of course there is a politics in it, and I think political parties are in the business of doing politics and winning support. So that I think is okay. But my question is that what is it that the government has done? It simply hasn't done enough. There's just a lot of talking, a lot of rhetoric, but and it's all on paper. On the ground, very little has been done.
Okay, let me take that to Dr. Singhvi.
There's only one program that has been relatively successful, and that is the scholarship program. The multi-sectoral development plan has just not worked. Now, minority, you see, and the point that was being made by the BJP representative, he's not right, because the constitution under Article 28 allows minorities the right to set up institutions of their choice with government support.
Yes.
Now in this case, the government is setting up minority institutions. It is not giving 50% reservations in, for example, Hyderabad University or Lucknow University or Jawaharlal Nehru University. That can be questioned, but these are minority institutions.
Well,
now I'm of the view, my view is different. I'm of the view that that's not really a good idea, but you can't question the constitutionality of this simply because these are minority institutions.
Dr. Singhvi, Zoya's point is that the Sachar committee report should have been acted on a long time ago. That there is much more that should have been done, and you're doing it, and it's not been done. It's too late.
Your time is limited. I'll be brief. First of all, good things there can never be enough of. We plead certainly guilty that we could have done more. There is always scope for improvement. But let me say we have done a lot. The very setting up of Sachar committee, nobody has thought of this in such stark figures, in such candid manner. That itself is an achievement. Action on many has been taken, but the results of that action are shown slowly. The district-wise targeted concentration is a very important thing. It takes a long time. Second, Mr. Trivedi actually is right. If this proves to be a gimmick, if we are not able to carry it through, or if we come back to power, we don't carry it through, it's a gimmick. I don't think Muslims are children who are fooled so easily. You can hold us accountable. When the ministry, my good friend Mr. Rahman Khan makes such an announcement, it has to go through HRD, it has to go to the cabinet. When it is implemented, if it is not implemented, it can be held to account. It's an official announcement. So don't be skeptical. We put our neck where our mouth is. We put our accountability where our mouth is. Thirdly, the Andhra Pradesh example, which is in Supreme Court, and this may be radically different in law. Ultimately, of course, man proposes, God disposes. So executive governments can only propose, the Supreme Court disposes, and there may well be a challenge. But to compare the two simply and suggest that this is as invalid or as identical to the Andhra Pradesh initiative is wrong. They are two totally different things. That was within a backward scheme. It was held down on various other reasons. 28 article has been cited. There are other provisions of the constitution which clearly recognize minority institutions. it will have to be argued, but to assume from beginning, and certainly that assumption should not deter an executive government from taking the initiative.
Okay, Sudhanshu, though, I wanted Sudhanshu to respond to Dushyant's particular point that the BJP shouldn't politicize everything when you don't raise objections to other kinds of affirmative action or reservations or quotas, but why do you do it every time it's for Muslims?
On this issue of minority institutions, I would like to remind one judgment of the Allahabad High Court, which has categorically said, first you define who is the minority. There are certain districts of Uttar Pradesh in which the Muslim community is 40, 50, 60 and 70%. There are certain states in which the one community is in majority and the other community is in minority. When you are trying to set up at the national level, do you have any criteria to define state by state? Or you are just going by the national average? Do you think that those states of northeast which are having the majority of a certain community, or in the Jammu Kashmir with a community which is in majority but at the national level they are a minority, they need the representation, or in the real deprived sections of the society who are in the middle of the country, they need the representation. The second question, if you go by the particular religion, then you yourself can understand which type of era or which type of politics you are going to introduce by setting up these institutions.
Okay, Zoya Hassan gets the last word.
You know, these minority universities are being set up by the central government, and therefore the 5 nationally defined minorities, which is Muslims, Christians, Sikhs, Buddhists, they would be the ones who would be benefiting from this. Now, of course, he is right. He is right. There is a question which has been raised in the last few years that there are national level minorities and state-based minorities. Now, that's a question that needs to be addressed. But I would say for these universities, it will be the 5 nationally defined minorities which will stand to benefit.
All right, well, I have to leave it at that. These are fascinating subjects and very important subjects to talk about. Thank you very much to the panel for joining us tonight, and thank you to Zoya Hassan as well for joining us this evening. That's it on the show tonight. We'll wait and see what happens in that court hearing in the Lucknow bench of the Allahabad High Court tomorrow, where the UP government has to explain on what basis it's withdrawing those terror cases. We'll keep an eye on that tomorrow. Do join us then.